like to call to order the regular formal meeting of the Iowa City City Council for December the 17th, 2019. Roll call, please.
Cole.
Here.
Mims. Here. Salee.
Here.
Taylor.
Here.
Teague.
Here.
Thomas.
Here.
Throgmorton.
Here. Item 2, Student Leadership Awards, Regina Elementary. So I'd like Macy Howes, Paul Weiner, and Taylor Knight to come up. Now stand right here. Okay. All right, here we are. Are you feeling pretty excited? Very good. So you're going to Regina Elementary, is that right? Pretty good school. You know, I went to St. Agnes Elementary in Louisville, Kentucky, a long time ago. It, too, is a Catholic elementary school. So I kind of know what it's like to be in such a fine institution. All right, so, So we're going to begin by having you read your speeches, right? And I think we're going to start with Macy. All right. So, ready to roll?
Hello, my name is Macy Howes. I am very thankful that my teachers chose me for the Outstanding Student Citizen Award. I think they chose me because when my class is loud, I try to give them a friendly reminder to keep quiet. Another reason I think they picked me is because I work hard to get my work done, and I make sure it is the best I can do before I turn it in on time. I would like to thank my family, friends, and my teachers for helping me get to where I am right now. Thank you and happy holidays.
Very good. You want to come up? Come on. Turn around like your sister did, like your big sister. Can you say your name?
Elle.
All right. You're going to go to Regina Elementary pretty soon too, right? Very good. Okay. I think, Paul, you're next. So hold on. Let me get over here on this side of you so I can hold this with you.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank my teachers for nominating me for this award. Though, if I knew it came with this extra homework assignment, I might not have been as happy. I was asked to say why I think they chose me for this award. It might have been the bribes. Just kidding. Seriously, I think it may be because I try to help out a lot in class. For example, when friends need help with homework, or teachers need a volunteer to read aloud in class, answer questions, and clean up. It's the right thing to do, and it's easy when I have nice teachers and great friends at Regina. Thank you.
All right. Are you thinking of possibly becoming an actor? No? Maybe? No? Okay, well, we'll see, huh? All right, and now we go to Taylor. Taylor Knight, right? Go ahead, Taylor.
I think my teachers selected me for this award because I'm a good role model. I help my community by taking care of flowers and altar serving at my church. At school, I participate in the monthly service projects. I am kind and supportive of classmates. I am a hardworking, organized, and responsible student. I play the flute and participate in choir and art class. I am confident in the sports I do, like volleyball, softball, and especially dance. Thank you to my teachers for choosing me for the Outstanding Student Citizen Award.
All right. Very good. What an outstanding set of kids from Regina Elementary. So, like I said, I'm going to read your award document, and it's the same text for all of you except for your names. So I'm going to read the text, and you just insert your own names, okay? All right. So, Student Leadership Award. For your outstanding qualities of leadership within Regina Elementary, as well as the community, and for your sense of responsibility and helpfulness to others, we recognize Taylor, Macy, and Paul. As an outstanding student leader, your community is proud of you. Presented by the Iowa City City Council, December 2019. All right. Taylor, that would be yours. And this should be Paul's. That's not Macy, that's yours. Paul, this is yours. Congratulations, well done. And I know you have very proud parents. There are two right there. I think there's some others right there. Where are the other parents? Wave your hands. All right. Well done. You have terrific kids here. Keep it up. Thank you. Now all you have to do is just kind of walk back down that way. Thanks.
Mayor, I would ask that you stay up front there for a moment, and Rockne, could you please join him?
Oh, am I going to get a student leadership award?
Yes, from that academy in Kentucky. I need a microphone, or?
Mayor.
You can
Mayor's got
take
it.
one.
Mayor's got it. So, we have another special recognition to make, acknowledging that it is yours, Mayor, and Rockne's last meeting. Oh, I'm going to have some tears here. And that the staff and council would like to say thank you for your dedicated service over these last few years. And I'm going to say just a few words briefly about each of you. Rockne, many of you know him as a lawyer in the community here. He has resided in Iowa City since 1997 when he came here to attend the University of Iowa College of Law. He was elected to the at-large seat on the council with a term that began in January of 16, with 4 of us here, which was wonderful. And during his tenure on council, he has relentlessly stood for historic preservation, a walkable, bikeable city, local foods, and sustainability. Your rhetorical discussions will be missed. And Jim, what can I say about Jim? Senator Bolcom said it so well earlier, but I'll add just a few personal notes here. He obviously is a retired university professor. He's lived in many cities across the country, but has called Iowa City his home since 1986. That's a long time. He first served as a member of Iowa City City Council in the years 1993 to 1995. Then was elected and served from 2012 to 2016 and 2016 to 2020, serving as mayor from 2016 until now. Through those years, he has stood by his belief that Iowa City should, and in his own words that we've heard many times, strive to become a just city, a city that is good on the ground for all, both now and in the future. And your passion will be missed. And now, let's see. This is a very lovely print that you'll be getting copies of that I wanted to share with the public. It's a print of the Park Road Bridge, which is very beautiful, and we'll be giving you each a print of that of your own.
With an excellent bike trail, I might add.
Exactly, you've talked about
Saw
that, yes.
yeah.
So before you stop, I want to acknowledge that that is a photo of the Park Road Bridge, and it is designed the way it is because Susan and I and 5 other prior council members voted to spend a little extra money to make sure that there was a bridge that really matched Hancher Auditorium and reinforced its aesthetic value. So
So very, very well planned and very appropriate, and for you, Rockne, for your part that you've played in that.
We used to have a print.
We also, in recognition of your service, we have a plaque. This, of course, is for the mayor. It's got the gavel on there, which he uses very proudly. This is for you, and thank you.
thanks.
And Rockne,
Thank
for
you so
you.
much, Pauline.
as a council
I
member.
appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'll treasure this for sure.
Yes. And then there's more. There's more to come. I'd like to point out that Mayor Throgmorton has been added to our wall of mayors in the back of the council chambers. So I'd like to call everybody's attention to it. It's been covered up, but there it is now. So the grand unveiling, yes. Thank you.
All right, sounds good. Thank you so much.
All right, what fun. I don't need that.
Don't need that.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks to everyone.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you for your service.
Thank you. Thank you, Rockne.
Thanks, Chris.
All this reminds me of something I meant to say at the start of the meeting, and just to acknowledge that it's the City Council's last meeting of 2019, which will take us into, good grief, 2020. Who would have guessed? But that's a fact, and it is, as has been acknowledged, both Rockne's and my last meeting as members of the City Council. I know that Rockne will have some things to say at the end of the meeting. I will too, but I just want to briefly acknowledge how honored I feel to have been able to serve the people of Iowa City as a city council member for 10-plus years and as mayor for the last 4. It is a great honor, and I really appreciate it very much. Okay, so before I cry, we can move on, because I think we're at the consent calendar, which is items 3 through 8. And I want a motion. I need a motion to approve items 3 through 8 as amended, with a change in items 6E and 6F as needed, naming new park in Peninsula the Emma J. Harvat Square Park.
So move.
Second. Oh.
Moved by Slay, seconded by Taylor. Discussion?
I just think it makes sense to do that, to amend that.
Yeah, this is called Emma J. Harvat
Right.
Room, right? Yeah, hall, I mean. Okay, any further discussion?
Well, maybe we just want to elucidate a little bit for the public is that Karen Cubby had reached out to the council and indicated that former Mayor Emma Harvat was very particular about the Emma J. And so we just wanted to make sure that was reflected.
And she was actually the first female mayor of Iowa City.
Yep.
More than that, I think there was a bigger first, but I can't remember what it was, like first in the state or whatever, something like that, but definitely first in Iowa City. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Cole?
Yes.
Mims?
Yes.
Salee?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throckmorton?
Yes, motion carries 7-0. Could I have a motion to accept correspondence for item 6D, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mem, seconded by Saleh. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we're at item 9, which is community comment. This is a moment when anybody who would like to speak to us about any topic that is not on the formal meeting agenda should please come up, state your name, and please remember to sign your name in as well, and take not more than, 3 or 4 minutes to tell us what's on your mind. Good evening. Nice to see you again.
Thank you. I'm Lucy Barker, also speaking for Selena McCarty. Houses into Homes wants to thank the council for granting our request for funding. The need in the community has exceeded our expectations, and a successful transition to an organization with a full-time director will enable us to grow to meet the need. We look forward to continuing to work with other agencies in the city to provide beds, furniture, and other household items to those in greatest need. We did not anticipate that the request would pit agencies who are all actively collaborating to help their clients against each other. As I said, we look forward to continuing to work with agencies and individuals throughout the city to provide beds and furniture. We also look forward to providing our budget and financial information. We would like to end on the following note. We think that the more you learn about Houses into Homes, the more you will understand the community need, and the more you will trust Houses into Homes. We intend to post more information going forward about our operations and our impact. Most importantly, we welcome all members of the community to volunteer. No invitation is required. We announce drop-off and delivery days on our website, and all are welcome. As all in the community who work to provide for the neediest know, the work is gratifying, edifying, and humbling. Thank you again for granting our request.
Thank you, Lucy. Good evening, Charlie.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, and I'll be sad to not see you in that seat starting in January, as well as Councilman Cole. But I'm very happy that you've been there these many years. I'm appearing tonight, again, my name is Charlie Eastham, 953 Cannon Street. I'm a member of the Iowa City School Board, but I am, as I was reminded by the board vice president when I met with him earlier this afternoon, to tell everyone that I'm appearing as a single member of the board and not as a board as a whole. I really appreciated your decision earlier this evening in the work session to continue funding for houses into homes. And I do that because half of the referrals from agencies that Houses into Homes has responded to in the last year came from the Iowa City Community School District personnel. And we must assume, I must assume anyway, that many of the 400 plus children who lived in houses that Houses in Homes has furnished are students in the Iowa City Community School District. And we all know that for students to succeed, it helps a great deal if they have a stable, a robust, and a happy home life. So I appreciate your doing what the school district could not do, that is, use public money to fund an agency that's doing work that helps the school system itself and the children that are receiving the benefit of that agency's work. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Charlie. Anyone else? Okay, not seeing anybody else, I'm going to turn to item 10, Planning and Zoning Matters. Item 10A, Annexation American Legion Road. This is a resolution to annex approximately 35.29 acres of land located north of American Legion Road and east of Eastbrook Street. So I need to open a public hearing. But I see that staff requests deferral of this resolution to January the 21st, so.
No, we're
help me
going
out.
we're going to open the public
Yeah.
hearing. We're going to have the
And then
public
defer.
hearing. We're going to close the public hearing, and then we're going to defer it. After
Oh, I
public-
see.
after
Okay,
public
now I
hearing.
understand. All right, Danielle.
Thank you, Mayor. Council Danielle Sitzman, NDS, she, her, hers. As Eleanor pointed out this evening, this is the first of two agenda items that are related to each other, an annexation and a rezoning. I'll walk you through the annexation first and then come back to do the rezoning presentation for you. This is for a parcel of land located east of Scott Boulevard, north of American Legion Road, currently located in the county with the county zoning applied to it, here shown in yellow with an R, but otherwise surrounded on three sides by the city. This application is to bring that parcel into the city through an annexation. It is located within one of our fringe areas and is intended to be eventually part of the city. It would be assigned an interim zoning district at the next agenda item. Then would have to go eventually through another rezoning before development takes place. At this time, they did not conduct a good neighbor meeting. They could still make use of that opportunity before the next rezoning, the one not yet on an agenda for you, and staff has encouraged them to do that. We've also forwarded the application as necessary to other entities for review as needed. So when we review an annexation request, there are several criteria that staff uses, three criteria in fact, whether the area falls under in an area adopted through a long-range planning area is appropriate for annexation, whether development in the area proposed for annexation fulfills an identified need without imposing undue burdens on the city, and whether control of the area is in the city's best interest. So staff did review this application and go through those criteria. It is located in a comprehensively planned area within the city's intended growth area. It has had future land use anticipated for it. As I said, it's surrounded by the city development, so it's shown here in the kind of light green color on the screen there. Development has proceeded around it in the past, so this would really be infilling that kind of gap that was created by previous development. So we see that as very much within the best interest of the city and not contributing to an undue burden, because it helps for contiguous provision of services within the city, such as fire, police, water, and sanitary sewer. And also the city has an interest in administering the zoning for that area. As I mentioned, we're at the step highlighted in green or blue on the screen there, the annexation stage. The next agenda item is the zoning to an interim zoning district. As I said, eventually this would have to be rezoned to yet a different zoning district to allow for development, go through the planning process. The Planning Commission did recommend adoption of this annexation at their meeting. Staff did include a condition in the kind of combined action that has to do with annexation and rezoning, but basically acknowledging the comprehensive plan's affordable housing annexation policy, and this application would be fulfilling that policy, or would be required to fulfill that policy. That concludes my report on the annexation. I'm happy to answer questions about that.
Okay, any questions for Danielle? Hearing none, thank you. Would anybody else like to address this topic? Seeing no one else, I need to ask the council if you are inclined to vote in accordance with the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation to approve.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, 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 yes. Okay. So I'm going to close the public hearing and then defer, right? I'm going to close the public hearing. Could I have a motion to defer to January the 21st, 2020?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mem, seconded by Cole. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to item 10B, rezoning American Legion Road. This is an ordinance conditionally rezoning approximately 35.29 acres of land located north of American Legion Road and east of East Brook Street from County Residential R Zone to Interim Development Single-Family Residential IDRS Zone. I'll open the public hearing. Hi, Danielle.
Evening again. So this is the second of the two applications. It's an application by Allen Homes for rezoning to apply the interim zoning district to the land just discussed in the annexation, approximately 35.29 acres. The applicant is exploring the development proposal currently for this land, so you should expect to see another rezoning in the near future. The review criteria that staff uses for rezonings are twofold, having to do with comprehensive plan conformance and compatibility with the existing neighborhood. As I mentioned, this land is subject to a future land use and comprehensive plan. The interim zoning district is compatible with that comprehensive plan, anticipating eventual lower density single-family development in the area. Looking ahead, a component of the existing neighborhood is the street network, and looking ahead to that future development and the need for roadway improvements eventually to American Legion Road, which are actually already planned in the city's capital improvement plan. Staff has included a condition to secure necessary right-of-way when this property is eventually platted. To facilitate construction of those roadway improvements, a temporary construction easement is also necessary and has been included as a condition of approval. The applicant has already signed that necessary temporary construction easement. Staff does acknowledge that construction of the city's project may overlap with the development of the subject property and has crafted the temporary construction easement for the potential for both the developer and the city to use the easement cooperatively. However, for clarification, I just do want to mention that the temporary construction easement will allow the applicant to grade for their project, but not for the city's roadway project. And that's fairly standard. This is just the boundary of that future roadway project for American Legion Road. As I mentioned, that's included in the city's roadway planning process. So again, we're at this first stage in annexation and rezoning to interim development, considering eventually a future rezoning and then the planning process. There are two conditions, additional conditions tied to the need for the right-of-way and the temporary construction easement the staff recommended and that have also been forwarded to you again tonight by the Planning Commission for approval. Happy to answer questions.
I'm not hearing questions, but when I first looked at the map, I couldn't read it clearly enough to determine whether there were roads, streets that would provide connection into the development, but I see that there are at least two, I think three stubs, if you will. Is that correct, or?
Yeah, so for interim development, that's fairly low density. Anything that would be allowed for under this zoning district would be very low density. We don't actually anticipate any development to occur with the interim zoning designation.
No, I understand that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does have enough frontage for one, if not several, connections to American Legion.
Yeah, because at first I was thinking, oh no, we're going to build a lollipop kind of thing going back up that.
Yep.
Up one road without any connections to, what is it, East Brook on the right, on the east?
Yep.
But that's not the case, so I feel a lot better about that. And I guess I wish we already had a missing middle form-based code in the works, or one that had been adopted for the area around New Hoover Elementary, which this is adjacent to. But that's probably not going to be the case. We'll see. But there it is. So I guess those weren't questions really, but I had them on my mind. Any more questions for Danielle?
And just for the public's benefit, I just wondered if you could just elaborate on that the developer satisfies the comprehensive plan's affordable housing annexation policy as stated in resolution. What does that mean?
Sure. So the comprehensive plan includes a policy that upon annexation, if development includes 10 or more residential units, that they must provide affordable housing at a certain rate, 10% for a period of time. So those requirements will need to be met if they proceed with residential development.
Thank you.
Is this the first application of that?
For the annexation.
For an annexation, yes. This made it through the process, yeah.
Was there some information given about how many units they propose or are possibly proposing?
That would be included in the next rezoning
next
when they
step,
pick an actual zoning
Actual
district
plan.
beyond interim.
Thank you.
So I guess I have a question for Eleanor. So we deferred the annexation to the 20th of January in order to make it happen at the same date as the third reading on this?
Correct.
Yeah.
So you'll want to vote on this one.
Yeah, okay. Any other questions for Danielle? Thank you. Anyone else want to address this topic? Hey, John. Hi.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. John Yap with Allen Homes. Mayor, to answer your question about the street network, there's one street that abuts the property to the west, Eastbrook Street, two streets that abut the property to the east, and then to the south, the American Legion Road frontage. And we are planning, there's also a floodplain and a floodway easement, but we are planning on street connectivity to the surrounding properties. This is the first property since the annexation policy was adopted that is being annexed, and we will fulfill the 10% affordable housing requirement. We are still finalizing a development concept plan, and once we are comfortable with that, we do intend to have a neighborhood meeting before the next rezoning. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Okay. Any questions for John?
No?
Thank you.
Thanks. Nice seeing you again. Anyone else? Okay, so seeing no one else, I need to ask the council if you're inclined to support this rezoning?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so I'm going to close the public hearing. Could I have a motion for first consideration?
Wolf.
Second.
Moved by Soe, seconded by Teague. Discussion. Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mims?
Yes.
Salee?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes?
Cole?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Item 10C, Fringe Area Rezoning, Nursery Lane Southeast. This is a letter to the Johnson County Planning and Zoning Commission in support of a rezoning from County Agriculture A and County Residential R to County Residential R3 for approximately 3.21 acres of property located in unincorporated Johnson County at 4201 Nursery Lane Southeast. Could I have a motion to approve, please?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mims, second by Soleil. Discussion. Danielle.
Thank you, Mayor. So as you mentioned, this is an application for 3.21 acres located generally south of the city on Sand Road and along Nursery Lane Southeast. It falls within the Fringe Area B outside the city's growth area. It's proposed for rezoning to single-family residential R3. And if approved, the applicant does intend to perform a boundary line adjustment and sell the property. This is a map showing the limits of the growth boundary, showing the existing property and the misalignment of the current parcel and the current zonings, designations in the county. So this is really kind of a cleanup on the county's behalf to apply the one zoning across basically what is all of this property and to allow it to be sold with that cleaned up zoning applied to it. This is an aerial image showing an overlay of the parcel boundaries that would be intended for sale. It is in the fringe area and subject to the fringe area agreement, which is a component of the city's comprehensive plan and helps staff evaluate such applications. The application is in compliance with the county's comprehensive plan for their future land use map. As I said, it's located in Fringe Area B outside the city's growth area where generally the Fringe Area Agreement prefers agricultural uses and restricts land uses in that way. Staff did review this application, looking at the county's future land use map and the Fringe Area Agreement. The existing development, like I said, is kind of straddling several parcels and has a split zoning. The county policy is to have only one zoning designation per parcel or lot. A residential use already exists in this area, and the proposed zoning would not allow for additional residential units. This is a one-step process, forwarding the recommendation from the city to the county to go through their land use development process. Although the proposed rezoning is not consistent with the policies currently outlined in the adopted Fringe Area Agreement, staff recommends approval of the rezoning for several reasons. The subject area is already partly zoned for residential uses and contains an existing single-family residential use. We don't believe further residential development would result from this. The rezoning would create a single zoning classification for existing development in that area, allowing for more efficient regulation by the county. And the county zoning ordinance states an intent to eliminate these instances of multiple zoning classifications. So at their December 5th meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted to forward this to you with a recommendation of approval. I'd be happy to answer questions.
I'm a little bit confused. Why are they seeking in the residential then if it's already residential? So there's going to be no more residential.
They'd like to clean it up so that they can sell the property with all of the parcels under the same zoning, the owners would.
Some of it's agricultural.
I think this map might show the difference between the agricultural zoning and the residential zoning currently.
Okay.
Any other questions for Danielle? I don't see any. Thank you. Would anybody else like to address this topic? Okay, seeing no one else, again, I need to ask the council if you're inclined to vote in accordance with the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendations.
Do you need? No, this is just a motion, right?
A motion.
Oh, I was looking at the wrong thing, was I?
You already did the motion and
I'm sorry, excuse me, I was looking at the wrong item. Yeah.
Move
So-
approval of the letter.
Yeah, sorry. What happened here? Yeah, sorry. We already have a motion that's on the floor, so council discussion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 10D, zoning code amendment related to utility-scale ground-mounted solar energy systems. This is an ordinance amending Title 14, zoning related to utility-scale ground-mounted solar energy systems. Could I have a motion to give second consideration, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Teague, seconded by Taylor. Discussion. Would anybody like to address this topic? Seeing no one. Council discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Salee?
Yes.
Taylor? Yes. Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes?
Cole?
Yes.
Mims? Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Item 10E, rezoning South Gilbert Street and Highland Avenue. This is an ordinance conditionally rezoning approximately 1.15 acres of land located at the northeast corner of South Gilbert Street and Highland Avenue from intensive commercial CI1 zone to Riverfront Crossings South Gilbert RFC-SG zone. This is second consideration, and but the applicant has requested expedited action. Could I have a motion to waive second consideration, please?
I move the rule requiring the ordinances must be considered and voted on for passage at 2 council meetings prior to the meeting at which it is to be finally passed be suspended, that the second consideration and vote be waived, and that the ordinance be voted on for final passage at this time.
Second.
Moved by Mims, seconded by Taylor. Discussion.
Mayor, at the last meeting, a question was asked about parking requirements. I just wanted to bring some additional information to you at this meeting. This slide shows both the conventional zoning district parking requirements in light blue and the riverfront crossings alternate, which would be the ones that apply to this parcel once the rezoning is in place, alternate parking requirements. You can see that the conventional zoning district has a parking requirement based on the pumps as well as the square footage of the retail space, and a bike requirement that's a percentage of the vehicle parking. The Riverfront Crossings has a lower requirement for parking. It's instead of 1 per 300 square feet is 1 per 500, does not anticipate additional parking needs for the pumps. Also allows for some flexibility if there were to be on-street parking in a development, and exempts smaller developments from the standard entirely. Also has bike parking requirements. In this case, the bike parking, well, in this case, they are only at the concept plan stage, so we're working with estimates of square footages, but with the riverfront crossing zoning, approximately 14 vehicle spaces and 5 bike parking spaces would be required. If it were not in a riverfront crossing districts, you can see the parking would be much higher, almost 35 spaces total.
But they propose to have a much larger number of vehicle parking spaces, right?
They've shown it at about 20 spaces.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Thank you. Council discussion? And again, we have a motion for second consideration, to waive second consideration. So no discussion. Roll call, please.
Taylor? Yes. Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes.
Cole?
Yes.
Mims?
Yes.
Salee? Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Move final adoption at this time.
Second.
Moved by Mims, seconded by Thomas. Discussion.
I think that this just really cleans up that corner a lot, changes or reduces the number of curb cuts, which will really help with the traffic flow. So I look forward to seeing the new development.
I echo that. I think the previous come-and-go developments have turned out very nicely for the areas that they're in, and I look forward to this.
I worry about access to my vet. I'm only kidding. My vet is located right across the, what is it?
In behind, yeah.
Whatever that
Second.
small street is. 3rd Avenue, or
Third.
3rd Street, yeah.
Third.
Oh, well, we'll have to live with it. I'm only kidding. Don't worry about it, anybody. Okay,
Run in
so.
and get some snacks.
All right, so what do we just, so we need a roll call, right? Roll call, please.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes.
Cole?
Yes.
Mims?
Yes.
Salee?
Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Item 10F, zoning code amendment related to single-family site development standards. This is an ordinance amending Title 14 zoning of the Iowa City Code related to single-family site development standards. Could I have a motion to pass and adopt, please?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Teague, seconded by Mims. Discussion. Would anybody like to address this topic? No. Okay, council discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes?
Cole?
Yes.
Mims?
Yes.
Salee?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Item 11, rental permit radon testing. This is an ordinance amending Title 17 entitled Building and Housing, Chapter 5 entitled Housing Code to require radon testing and mitigation in single-family and duplex rental units. This is a motion, I need a motion to pass and adopt, please.
Move. Second.
Moved by Salee, seconded by Mims. Discussion. Would anybody in the audience like to address this topic? We received some correspondence, Jeff, pertaining to this in our late handout, and then, I don't know, Susan and I received an email pertaining to it. And the gist of it was mainly an objection about requiring this radon testing to be conducted only by licensed radon specialists, radon testing specialists. And there were a couple other objections, I guess, and what we got from, I'm trying to find this, the man's name from, hold on one second. In our late handout, we got a note, an email from Chris Bellhauer for the Greater Iowa City Area Apartment Association, also objecting that the new, saying that it would be expensive. Licensed testers are few and far between, and requiring this particular set of people to do testing would violate state law. So I wonder if staff could respond to that.
No, there's no violation of state law. The state doesn't require radon testing. The state does provide the requirements for certification as a radon tester as well as a mitigator. And they don't require a property owner, in order to test his or her own home, does not have to be certified. Interestingly enough, they do require that it has to be a third party who does any mitigation. But the law is inapplicable to what we're doing here.
Okay.
I think from putting the legal issue aside there, the question is, do you want the property owners and the landlords to test their own units? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense for us. I think you need a third party to do that. Otherwise, you just don't have verification that the test was done properly or necessarily even on site. The test itself is relatively inexpensive, a couple $100, and this ordinance would require it once every 8 years. So I don't think, from a cost standpoint, the test is an overly burdensome requirement.
I would entirely agree with staff's permission on that, or perspective on that. When I was, reading the original documentation and then reading these letters, I think when you're talking about the health and safety of individuals who are, choosing their housing, it really needs to be done by an independent third party. And the fact that we're not requiring it every single year, there may be a crunch the first time through, possibly, but after that, I don't think it should be a problem. So I'm totally supportive of staff's recommendation.
I agree with Susan, because I think you can't put a cost on the health of individuals, and radon can be very, very dangerous, and so I agree.
I did just kind of look up to see what would it entail for the owner to do the test themselves. And there are kits out there, but most of the kits are required where you would mail it back into a lab and wait for the results. And so I think just the sequence of what could be placed in the hands of the owners may not actually, it would probably be more burdensome to some owners. So I am supportive of definitely having it done by a professional. That way we can verify that the test has been done appropriately.
Mm-hmm. I also believe that, professional, I just believe this is good move by the city, because like a person like me as immigrants, I really wasn't know anything about the radon until I bought my house and they tested, and I don't know what the heck is that. And after that, people explain me. For our people who renting, like immigrants, people who don't know about this, I guess by the city doing that, we are protecting them. And by doing it by like a certified person, we are protecting them. They don't know this, and I doubt. I lived in I live in 3 different apartments, and 1 apartment and 2 houses in the city, but I never ask about what's the radon on this. And I don't know that even until I bought the house. And this will be applied to people who, just like me, immigrants who don't know this. And our city thinks that we're doing this. This is really great. So we are protecting the people, they don't know this, and which is great. Yeah.
That's an excellent public health and safety point that I hadn't thought about, but it's really spot on. I do wonder about a claim that Chris Bellhauer makes about the number of licensed testers being few and far between. I think he says there are 2 or 3 or something like that licensed testers in the area, but I don't have the text right in front of me, so I don't remember exactly what he said. Jeff, Stan, do you have any sense of that?
Yeah, Stan Laverman, Senior Housing Inspector. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but private home inspectors, many of those are also certified to test for radon. So it goes beyond, I think there's 2 or 3 people that are specific radon inspectors, but licensed home inspectors, private home inspectors can also test for it.
You can pull up a map on the state website of the licensed providers, and it looks to me that there are 6 in the Iowa City, Coralville, North Liberty area, and there's an additional 4 in the Solon, Amana, Swisher, kind of next ring out. So we don't see that as a problem. Again, we're testing once every 8 years for these properties, and they're not all coming due at once. It's not like our rental permits all come due on a date specific. They're coming up throughout the year, and some are on 2-year cycles. So certainly we don't think that's going to be a problem, and we're not going to be punitive if it is a problem. If there's a genuine backlog of people being able to test, we're going to work with those property owners like we would with other issues.
Great. Any further council discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Throgmorton?
Yes?
Cole?
Yes.
Mims?
Yes.
Salee?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Could I have a motion to accept correspondence from the Greater Iowa City Apartment Association, please?
Move.
Second.
Moved by Slay, seconded by Teague. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 12, repeal rental permit moratorium. This is an ordinance repealing ordinance number 19-4793, a temporary moratorium on new rental permits for single-family and duplex units. Could I have a motion for first consideration, please?
Move.
Second.
Moved by Slay, seconded by Teague. So I want to say a little bit about this. We had an extensive discussion about it during our work session, but we're going to recapitulate some of that. I'm going to ask Jeff to help bring us up to us and the audience up to date on actions that have taken place over the last 2 or 3 weeks. And also, I'll ask John Thomas to summarize what's in his memo. But we've gotten recommendations from John from Austin Wu for the student government, Sarah Barron from the Affordable Housing Coalition, and several individual residents asking us not to end the moratorium. And there are recommendations about things that could be done to address the issues that are of concern to them. So the question before us ultimately will be, do we see good reasons to keep the existing deadline for the moratorium in place, or do we want to terminate it earlier as called for in the proposed ordinance? So, Jeff, could you help us out here?
Yeah, I'll have Tracy Heichu come up and go through the list again with you as she did during the work session, but just to set the stage for that, a reminder that when the state legislature enacted the familial status regulation, the city took, we had a moratorium, and we took several months to figure out what our next steps would be. A lot of attention has been paid to the rental cap that was put into place and later restricted, but there were a series of changes that we made to the housing code and the zoning code that we believe would also protect the city going forward. In addition, as Tracy will mention, we hired staff and increased enforcement activity. And all those provisions remain in place. They were not removed or preempted by the state government. So with that, I'll turn it over to Tracy Heichu with Neighborhood and Development Services, and she can walk you through that.
Okay, I'm going to highlight the changes we've made through 2017 till today. We updated the rear setbacks in the central and downtown planning districts. The setback is now proportional to the size of lot, but can't be less than 20 feet. This was to support house-scale buildings in this district. We increased, it wasn't on the slideshow, but we also increased side setback for multifamily and group living uses. That was to ensure a separation between the units for privacy between abutting lots. We limited the number of bedrooms in attached single-family and duplexes to 4. That was to help control occupancy for these higher density household living uses. We established Minimum bedroom size in multifamily increased from 70 square feet to 100 square feet. We counted that excessively large bedrooms had to be attached or counted as 2 bedrooms. We updated the private open space requirements for new construction and additions. Also, to receive a new rental permit, you had to comply with those regulations. We had to adjust parking standards because the old parking standards were by your familial status. So I'm kind of going from the memo that was in your packet as well. So you have to. So revised parking standards for single-family and two-family uses. So 1 and 2 bedroom units was 1 required parking space plus 1 space for each adult occupant above 3. For units with 3 or more bedrooms, 2 parking spaces plus 1 space for each adult occupant beyond 3. And then you just passed the front yard paving. So that was to address paving over your parking lot in order to increase occupancy or make it more marketable for tenants. The housing code changes. We did hire a full-time staff member to proactively enforce our housing code nuisance violations. We increased a full-time inspector because we went from every other year inspections to annual inspections for single-family properties with more than 4 bedrooms, for multifamily properties built before 1996, sorority fraternities, and group housing, single-room occupancy units. We also, 0.5 FTE was provided to the police office as a police officer to also help us with those neighborhood nuisance violations that you see on the weekends or after 5 p.m. And then, as we mentioned, or I mentioned earlier about the changes to the habitable room, the space, the bedrooms, only 35% of your home can be occupied by bedrooms. We required interconnected smoke alarms for properties that add 1 or more bedrooms. We set minimum requirements for shared living space. We required the permanent separation between duplex units to address privacy and safety. And we required deadbolt locks, and that was a concern of the U of I, and limited parking to the rear lot for single-family and duplex properties. So that's a history of what has been done to date. All these are still viable. We're still enforcing these. The only thing that changed was the state prohibited us from using the rental permit cap that we had adopted.
Okay. Any questions for Tracy? Thank you. John, you want to?
Yeah, I'll try to briefly summarize the memo I sent out to council. And it really was trying to identify various ways we could achieve the goals which were set forth when we put the moratorium in place. And they had to do with ensuring diverse demographic and housing choices in the core neighborhoods. Tracy, could you put up either one of those 2 slides?
With the density.
Yeah. So this is, I think it's important to try to get an understanding of what is the area where achieving these goals is at issue and of concern. It's those areas really limited to the core neighborhoods of Iowa City, and it's in fact a little bit smaller than the area shown by the boundary area here. Some of these areas in the dark red are high-density student rental, and those are areas that really are not of concern because they're just essentially all serving that demographic. So it's in these other areas where there are relatively high percentages of student rental, where there's concerns about how do we, again, try to diversify that demographic and provide housing choices as we move forward. And, I'm in full support of the changes staff has made thus far. However, there was a recent permit issued in April of earlier this year for an addition at 938 East Jefferson, which was converting a 1-bedroom, 830 some odd square foot single-family home into a 7-bedroom, 7-bath residence. And I think the intent of many of these things that Tracy went through was to prevent that. However, as you can see with that one permit that was issued, it's not that difficult to achieve 7 bedrooms and 7 baths in a single-family neighborhood in this area where we're trying to address and diversify the demographic and provide housing choices. So I feel, given how, with the lot sizes that we have on many properties in the core neighborhoods, that this is not only an issue with additions, it's an issue with certain properties which are of a lot size that kind of development would be possible. And in being possible, it would, one, work against our goal of diversifying the neighborhood demographic. It would also, in a sense, preempt some other housing options which would be more likely to improve the diversity and the housing options. So it's this regulatory framework that is not successfully achieving the diversification also prevents us from truly beginning to try to diversify the affordability and demographic of the neighborhood. And I've done some preliminary investigations. I think there are ways we can address this, looking at some of the other codes in the state of Iowa where you have large universities, Ames, Iowa, and the University of Northern Iowa, that I think deserve looking at, as well as a number of other potential ways to resolve this issue. And so I'm going to be asking that we council to support extending the moratorium until it naturally expires on March 1st rather than ending it any sooner. I will just mention one other, I developed these policies with consultation of some real estate professionals, Austin Wu, who is our student liaison, and I did want to highlight one goal that I'd stated, and that is that the affordability of housing for students is an issue in Iowa City. In fact, in a recent survey that the student government conducted, it was identified as one of the highest priorities of the students to have more affordable housing. And I'm in complete agreement with that. What I noted to Austin when we met was we need to identify where that's appropriate. And in those neighborhoods where we are trying to diversify the demographic, I would say that that's not an appropriate place, but other areas within the university, the areas around the university, I think, are ones that we need to be looking at so that we're not simply looking at increasing density. I think that's sort of been our primary focus. And I would say that we need to, while increasing density, also be looking at how do we make that higher density affordable. So those are probably, in terms of the question of what to do with the moratorium, I think probably the highlights. It's a fairly comprehensive set of policies, but I think those are the key ones.
So just for clarification, John, you will be urging us to vote no on the motion tonight, which would leave the existing moratorium of date of March 1st in place?
Correct, because I do think we need that time to further investigate these issues so that we can achieve a higher level of control in terms of the outcome of any permits, either for additions or new development. Once the moratorium is lifted, new building permits can be issued. One of the factors with the moratorium being in place is the only permits that can be issued are for those that already have a rental permit. Once the moratorium is lifted, houses can be demolished and new permits issued for any new construction, assuming there are no other impediments to that demolition.
Okay.
John, I want to ask John a question.
Sure, sorry.
Like when you say this, we're talking about 3 months now, right? 3 months. Leave it for 3 months.
There are 4 more meetings between now and March the 1st that are currently scheduled.
March 1st. We're talking about 2 months. Leave the this on, right?
Yeah, roughly.
But you're saying more people will come up and buy houses or just start building, have a building permit and everything. Don't you think they're going to do the same thing on March 1st or March 2nd?
Gives us more time.
It just gives us more time to make.
To do what?
To make revisions to our zoning code so that 7 bedrooms and 7 bathrooms may no longer be an option.
Just to clarify the timing, this will take 3 readings, so if you were to move forward and not collapse, this would pass on January 21st. So you really would be preserving about 2 meetings.
Yeah.
So the functional impact is.
Or there could be a special meeting instead of just collapsing the second and third readings. Right, but it's a pretty tight timetable. Rockne?
I'd also just note that with zoning code changes, we have to take it through the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Right.
That's one reason I think it's kind of regrettable we didn't start having these kinds of conversations much earlier in the year, even like last spring, because it is going to take time. Even if we were to keep the moratorium in place, which, by the way, I'm in favor of keeping it, it would give staff time to rewrite some of the codes or add that as far as the boarding, housing kinds of rules, the bedroom size and number. But as you'd said, that would then take 3 readings. So we're getting into the spring. So there is kind of a sense of urgency in it, which I think also. Just for the public trust issue, we set guidelines or state things and have deadlines. We need to stick to that. We can't change it.
In terms of the March 1st.
And we would not.
Yeah,
I mean,
we cannot.
March 1st is a deadline.
Right.
We
So I'm in favor
must
of
not
keeping
go
that.
beyond
Right.
that.
But
We
I'm in
made a
favor of
commitment.
not repealing it, but keeping the March 1st deadline.
Rockne, you asked Jeff a question earlier about other things that the city has already done. Is there some of those that we can expound upon?
Well, I mean, that was one of the things that I had asked. I think Jeff had used a really good metaphor in terms of sort of the regulatory dial. They tried to get it just right, sort of the Goldilocks in terms of the parking, the open space, and those sorts of things. But I wanted essentially a work session, obviously be with the next council, but really in terms of, are there some things, and one of the emails that I emailed Jeff, I said, were there some things that we can do, but staff, for policy reasons, decided not to do for affordability issues or those sorts of things. So my starting premise is that we would have the authority to consider some of these things, but for whatever reason there was a policy recommendation not to do it. So for example, like the sprinkler systems, I understand that's something we can do, but there's a recommendation not to do. That's just an example.
Sure.
But in my own view, the functional impact of what we're talking about, I think Susan brought up a good point, during a previous meeting, is that to vote yes, we would still have the 3 meetings. So we're really only talking about 1 more month for a little bit more time. As Eleanor points out, as a practical matter, that may not be enough time to make any changes that will affect the zoning permits going forward. But I do think there needs to be a work session on that so that we can talk about that dial. And by the way, some of those things maybe in terms of that regulatory dial maybe have been set too tightly. I mean, maybe there are some things that we could say, hey, maybe we're a little bit too onerous on. Now, I like the recommendations the staff has given us, but so I wouldn't assume that necessarily there couldn't be some tweaks that maybe favor some landlords as far as that goes. So that's that particular issue. In terms of my own view, I think this has always been cast as a rental versus non-rental, and I've never really looked at that as the right way to look at it. I mean, to me, the challenge we have is density associated, especially with some of the more historic structures, that was never intended for that level of density. I mean, that's and the challenges and the health and safety challenges with that. And so I just want a little bit more time, and I think it'd be helpful for a future council to have a little bit more time to assess some of those and to maybe give some impact as far as that goes. In terms of the affordability issue, I do think that it's important that we elucidate a little bit why there is this connection to affordability. For example, for some of our nonprofits, we used to be able to control unrelated occupancy to no more than 3, right, is my understanding. That regulatory tool was taken away from us. As a result of that, directly related to the affordability, so for example, if Housing Fellowship want to buy a home, when you put 7, 8 students, each paying $500 a month in one house, that makes it nearly impossible for a middle-income or a lower-income family to buy out in our core neighborhoods, as well as for our nonprofits that would have the resource, so we could get in a good long-term Section 8 renter in some of the neighborhoods. So it is a real issue that we need to evaluate, and I think, will we solve everything by March 1st? Probably not. But when we're talking about just essentially another month for a little bit more time, and maybe it will be some of these things that will have to go into effect at a later time, but I think we should do that. So I am going to be voting no, so the future council will have that opportunity to at least weigh in and have a little bit more of an extended discussion on
Can
some
we
of these
hold on
issues.
for a second? With your permission, I'd like to see if anybody in the audience would like to say anything to us about this, because, give them a chance to weigh in. Go ahead, please. Please state your name, write it down as you're doing it.
My name is Bruce Ayotti. I live in the North Side neighborhood. So that bridge, that lovely bridge, I have the privilege of overlooking, as did my neighbor, Vicky Solers, who unfortunately, due to health reasons, is living out of state. Vicky had, wasn't able to care for herself very well, and as a consequence, that house is not in very good condition. When you drive right across the bridge, you'll look up, there's a blue and white one, that's mine, a black and white one, that's Vicky's. Currently, there is water damage in the balcony area overlooking the sun deck. There are basically holes in the basement from water damage. Someone needs to get in there and fix it. I'm not sure. I was told one thing when I asked John, but when I talked to Stan, the current parking spot in front doesn't fit that 9-foot offset. So I have an offer on this house, and it's accepted pending my ability to get a rental permit. I live next door. I share a driveway. I do not want to put 10 students in that house. That house needs a steward. I am willing, I'm not a very wealthy man, but I have means, I'm a faculty member, to put what I have in terms of time, I can swing a hammer, into fixing that house. I have until February 7th to get a rental permit, otherwise it goes on the market for someone else. These policies have side effects. They have side effects like mine, which are very concrete and I can come and tell you. But how many people are being nudged to not take care of things because of this? Playing defense, sorry, apologies for sports analogy, but you can't score points, or at least not very many points, playing defense all the time. You need people who care about this neighborhood to step up and take care of these homes. I live next to this home. I love that home. I was there when Vicky was there for the last 12 years of her meaningful life. If this doesn't get repealed, I have to back off. The only other people who've looked at it are people who look a lot to me like they're looking for a fraternity overflow house. And that's probably what's going to happen. And if that happens to me, because where it's, the fraternities are all in that area, I'll probably have to do the same thing. I can't live next to a fraternity. And then the dominoes begin to fall. So you're setting up something, and I understand the impetus behind it because I live in this neighborhood. But you have unintended consequences when you have very, very heavy-handed, one-size-fits-all, large footprint policies like a moratorium. And you say, well, we need more time, but you've had so much time, and you're not going to come up with it. I'm sorry, you're not going to come up with anything in that extra month. In fact, if anything, I'm betting that I'm betting it's going to be extended, the moratorium, because okay. But regardless, at that point, this one particular property is gone, and it would be kind of sad to see an old, particularly this property, where it sits, what it looks like. Because of this kind of, there's got to be other ways to do this other than getting in the way of people who are trying to do the right thing. Because if you block a little person like me trying to do the right thing right next door to his house, all you leave are people who can buy something and hold on to it until the right council comes and they can do whatever they want with it. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce. Anyone else?
Everybody.
Hi, Jen.
Hi, thanks. I'm Jen Wagner. I'm Bruce and Becky's neighbor. I live across the street, and I'm here in support of them because I wanted you to hear another voice from someone in the neighborhood. Like Bruce and I, we both own a house that's 100 years old. Both of us have put an inordinate amount of work. My husband is a handyman, thankfully. He does most of the work himself. but we both recognize how much work it takes to fix up these old houses. The house that Bruce wants to purchase, he wants to ultimately have his parents live next door. And so we just wanted to put an example for you, because you keep bringing up this 7-bedroom, 7-bathroom place. But the flip side of it is that there's an ancient old house that's falling apart, and you have this man here and his wife that want to fix it up. And it's a shared driveway, it's a shared garage. There's not a lot. He can reach out one window and touch the next building. There's not a lot of people that would want to buy this particular house, except for the people that he saw look at it, and that freaked us all out. So again, I'm here in support of them. My family's in support of him. When I hear the big picture issues about the moratorium, sure, there's some logic that I absolutely support, but there, like Bruce said, there's things that slip through the cracks, and I would like to think that maybe as you move forward, perhaps you could put a caveat in place where you could have staff work with someone like Bruce or other families that may be in a position to help an ancient old house that's falling apart next door and they want to do something about it. Maybe before you extend your moratorium, maybe there's just something that he can do before this falls apart and he's no longer, I mean, the bank is working with him. He has the loan. It's February what? February 7th is his deadline. So anyway, thank you all very much for listening. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Jen. Just to be clear, we're not extending the moratorium. The moratorium was established something like 8 months ago. It expires on March the 1st. So all we're considering is whether to accelerate the termination of the moratorium. I can see how it has consequences, but there's a meaningful difference that matters to us.
We're going to help to support the acceleration.
Anyone else want to address this? Hey, Thomas, hi.
You ready for a third version of that same act? So I'm Thomas Agron. I live in the Northside neighborhood in a university program home. I'm involved in the Northside Neighborhood Association, and I've also been the Northside representative for the HPC for the last 6 years. My wife and I recently bought the house directly next door to us. It was built in 1910 and has easily a half-century of deferred maintenance. So we're redoing the entire house, new kitchen, bath, plumbing, total restoration, new roof and everything, including adding the historic porch back onto the front of the house, both because it will look nice, I think, and also because it helps build community. The goal is to take the house from non-contributing status to contributing, which I say in both the city-oriented sense of that phrase and also the community-oriented sense of that phrase. We want to invest in our neighborhood just like other people that you're hearing from. Whenever it is that you repeal the moratorium, and I'm in favor of doing it sooner, we'll be applying for a permit for this house to help finance the restoration of the property. Similarly, we are not adding bedrooms, nor will we be adding parking, given the walkability of the neighborhood. I'm fixing it up myself, and so we are, in effect, small-scale developers. Development comes in many forms, not just from the big boys who are focused on maximizing profit over all else that our city planning documents encourage. You can just look south of Burlington if you want to think about that. The way the moratorium and rental caps or moratorium stands, it rewards longtime slumlords of Iowa City, assigning huge value to the permits themselves and essentially ensuring that the properties remain rentals eternally while preventing a new landlord like myself with priorities of preservation, community, long-term tenants, and affordable housing from investing in my neighborhood. Take, for example, two properties that neighbor us. To our north, there's a once historic house at 518 North Van Buren Street. 3 basement apartments, 2 ground floor apartments, a third code violating apartment on the second floor and attic. The landlord and contractors park trucks all over the grass regularly. The backyard's been graveled over. Every other yard in our alley has been paved over, for that matter, including recently some paving in the city right-of-way so that a landlord can locate a dumpster there. The property floods regularly. They always tell the tenants, because I witnessed the conversations, that, oh, it never floods, and then those tenants are forced to move out consistently every spring. We've watched it for the last 7 years. The most recent batch started to take up counsel at the university, and sensing the threat to their permit, given the strike system, the company paid them off and relocated everybody. This is the kind of investor or property owner that gets to have a permit in the north side. Another property is 332 North Van Buren. This property has multiple curb cuts. It just poured concrete over the whole backyard, and anywhere there wasn't concrete, they freshly gravelled. Insult to injury, they pulled down a mature, healthy oak tree the other day, just like other slumlords in my neighborhood, because they create a, quote, maintenance issue. And so I really urge you to give that property, 332 North Van Buren, a look to look at the new paving, which I was told meets code, and ask yourself if this kind of weak equation on open space is actually working for the neighborhood. So I hope you'll repeal the moratorium, but it's essential that you aggressively add to and pursue code violations and incentivize changes. Incentivize removing concrete, incentivize landscaping or interior-exterior restoration work as a way to remove strikes from code violations. Create a parking improvement district, disincentivize car ownership through codes. It's the most walkable neighborhood probably in all of Iowa. Stop approving egress basement windows, which is one of the primary things that we do on the Historic Preservation Commission, because all they end up doing is pricing smaller households out of the neighborhood. There are lots of people who want to live in the north side but do not want to own and who are not looking for 7-bedroom properties, which I know you know. And so the problem to me isn't so much with renting, it's with extractive slumlords, poor property management, enforcement, and incentives. And that's where I want to see, as a resident of the north side, your attention focused. Rentals are not antithetical to healthy neighborhoods, and stability and long-term residence are the result of affordability, good stewardship of the properties, and landlords who are seeking a return on investment in terms of the vitality of their neighborhood, not of their bank accounts. So I hope that you will repeal the moratorium. Thanks.
Anyone else? Hi, Nancy.
Good evening. I'm Nancy Carlson. What is a house? We intuitively know in our gut. When we are shown or told about a building that varies from that concept, we instantly say, no, that is not a house. It has to do with proportions. Proportions of private living space, bedrooms and bathrooms, to communal living space where you eat, cook, live, and to uninhabitable space, which deals with the functioning of the house, the furnace, the laundry, the storage. When the proportions of these types of usage are in balance, we say, yes, this is a house. When they aren't, we are uncomfortable and believe we are being hoodwinked. It calls into question our intelligence. The structure at 938 Jefferson is 3,408 square feet. Of that, bedrooms compose 1,044 square feet, which would be appropriately 1/3 of the footage. However, when you add 400 square feet for private bathrooms, the footage increases to 1,504 square feet for private space. 1,704 square feet would be half the house. That leaves us 1,904 square feet, so we could obtain at least a balance between private space and communal space. But the communal space comes to 700 square feet, and the uninhabitable area used for the functioning of the structure is 1,204 square feet. The proportions of these areas are totally out of balance. They go against everything we intuitively know constitute a house, and yet the city tells us this is a house. This is a very uncomfortable position because it negates our intrinsic understanding of what a house is. It allows manipulation of structures that are travesties of houses to be built in our neighborhoods. The suggestions I sent to the City Council dealt with attempting to balance the areas devoted to the three functions of a house. Changing the square footage of bedrooms to include a private bath for a percentage of area devoted to private space would certainly help. A comment was made by a staff member that by adding a door from the bathroom to a hallway, it would no longer be a private bathroom. Since the fact that bathrooms have a toilet, sink, and tub, including 2 doors, would be an extremely difficult achievement? And would a tenant be willing to allow access to what they feel is their bathroom? It may be advantageous to look at the amount of footage required for communal space versus bedrooms. In requiring 100 square feet per bedroom, is requiring 100 square feet per bedroom sufficient to achieve a balance of communal space to private space? Or each of the 3 functions in a structure can comprise no more than 1/3 of the finished floor space. These regulations would apply only to structures labeled houses or duplexes, not group homes or rooming houses. I am not looking for pie in the sky, but a sensible solution which would achieve a balanced structure to keep the goal of the RNS12 zone and help achieve your goals set at the beginning of the moratorium. Please help us in our commitment to our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Hi, Austin.
Hello there. Austin Wu again, UISG City Liaison. Initially, I was going to make some comments about potential solutions, but I'm not sure where they fall on this unfeasible, illegal, plausible continuum, so I'll save those for later. First, I'd like to thank Councilor Thomas for reaching out to me and plugging in that necessity for affordability in student housing. What I've seen in my short time in this town is that this issue of the rental cap and the permit and the moratorium is that this issue extends far beyond the issuance of rental permits and affects adjacent issues and other adjacent issues affected as well, such as parking, the cost of housing, and as well as the influence of landlords in that local housing market. So first with parking. Parking is a significant driver of housing costs, both in the space taken up for service parking as well as the construction of garages and underground facilities for new housing. Ways or methods to reduce the space needed for parking by reduce the space needed for parking in any way, I think would not only go forward towards reducing the city's carbon emissions as seen in our climate goals, but also in reducing housing costs both in new construction and existing facilities. And then secondly, I would like to mention the necessity to break up landlord power in Iowa City. When problematic behaviors are brought up regarding rental housing, such as the failure to clear snow or ice off of sidewalks, the acquisition of property en masse at the expense of other community members, poor upkeep, and the neglect of properties to the point of irreversible decay, it is usually with the properties owned by some of the largest landlords in the city. Integral to a sustainable and equitable housing market over the long term is reining in the influence and footprint of some of these property management companies and landlords who I'll leave unnamed here. Thanks.
Thank you, Austin. Anyone else? Good evening.
Hi. Sarah Barron, Affordable Housing Coalition. I just want to emphasize that our board intends to respond to the proposal provided by Councilmember Thomas about potentially keeping the rental moratorium in place, and really just identify some of the potential benefits of the whole suggestion that he provided, which included incentives for development of other types of housing and more affordable housing. Whether the moratorium is ended earlier or kept in place until March, we really want to indicate that we are interested in discussing incentives for the neighborhood. And though we see the potential for ending the moratorium before those incentives are discussed in more detail, that could have an impact on people's decisions about real estate investments, that our main interest is just simply in discussing those affordable housing improvements in the area, not so much about when precisely the rental moratorium should be ended. I just wanted to clarify that. I'm not sure that I did. But, okay.
But Sarah, what do you think you can do in just like 2 months? Because you know that the time that we're going to end it is the end of, if we started today, that means we're going to be finished on the end of January, right?
Right. And so that's what I'm trying to say, that we considered a proposal from Councilmember Thomas that included both keeping the rental moratorium in place and discussing other incentives to promote affordable housing in the neighborhood, right? That was kind of what we considered. And what we're most interested in about that proposal is the incentives to stimulate more affordable housing production, not necessarily when the rental moratorium is ended. So, we can see some reasons why you might want to keep it in place, but we're more interested in the other components beyond just ending it or not ending it early.
I just think that, I don't know, this is not, I think this is not for Sarah, maybe later for discussion, right?
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Anyone else?
I know, but...
Okay, thank you. Now we can turn to council discussion. Feel free.
Yep. I would, as I said before, I would like to see us move forward with the first vote. We still have the opportunity to defer it at a later time if we see that there are things in front of us that we really think could make an impact and could get done before the moratorium expired. So we could stop that process, try and get those things done, let the moratorium expire as it's planned right now on March 1st. I think there are, certainly as we've heard tonight, some compelling issues for individuals by letting this go till the very end. And while we've got some interesting proposals from Councilmember Thomas and some other members of the community, one, the question of getting any of those things done, doing an actual analysis of those, determining what is legal, what is, what makes sense, what would work in this community, and trying to get them done by the 1st of March is very questionable as is. And certainly if it's a zoning issue, it's not going to get done by the 1st of March by the time it has to go through P&Z and everything else. So my recommendation would be that in this first vote, we go ahead and vote to end the moratorium. We have 3 votes, so we can always defer later on if we feel like we really need to. And secondly, what I would like to see, and this piggybacks on what you said, Rockne, we've got the holidays coming up, but I think staff has some emails and memos in front of them. If staff thinks it's possible, I would like for our second meeting in January to just because I don't think with the holiday we can do anything in the first meeting, to have a real kind of detailed response from staff of what they think is workable. I exchanged some emails with Eleanor on some of these ideas that had come up. What did she think was legal at first blush, what's not? And then based on that response from staff, we could decide whether we feel it's worth going ahead and keeping the moratorium in place. I mean, I'd be open to doing it the first regular meeting in January, but I think with the holidays, that puts an awful lot of pressure on staff.
What would you think about instructing staff to do that, but perhaps having 2 council members participate in discussions?
No, I think council, no, because I think council needs to talk about it all together. I think if any individual council members have ideas that they want to share with staff or have them explore, then I think that's all fine. But I think that council needs to sit together as a team and talk about things in detail and not have 1 or 2 that have a certain perspective or a different perspective sitting in with the staff.
So
I think they're professional and capable to have that
that,
discussion
Susan.
on their own.
But you would agree with
I don't think we should
voting
have
tonight?
I haven't stated that, but I think in terms of 2 counselors, because individual counselors express views and don't have authority. So I would agree that any work session should be the council as a whole.
Before we go further, I'd be interested in giving Jeff a chance to respond to me dumping stuff on them.
Yeah, I think just to let you know what's coming up here. Obviously, between now and the next meeting, there's not really going to be opportunity for us to do a whole lot.
Right.
You're then into budget. Your first work session, remember, we're starting early at 3. We're going to have the CIP work session. I don't think you're going to want to add up probably a whole lot to that first agenda. You certainly could. And so that puts us at that second meeting in January. The bigger question is to me is, I think you need to be clear on where you want staff to focus. We've given you our recommendation. We think where we've kind of landed is the right spot. So, and based on the concerns that we've heard, particularly looking at the Jefferson property, you're really looking at those interior space allocations. How big bedrooms? How big common space? How do you make all those calculations? Those are. I don't know. I mean, I can tell you, we can increase those sizes. We can decrease the percentages. We're not going to be any more confident than we are with our current numbers. So I just don't know what you think that we can offer you, especially given the other demands on our times right now. I mean, we've done the research. We've looked at other codes. I'm just not sure exactly how to respond to the conversation as a whole. I'm hearing, if you want to prevent that 738 Jefferson, or I'm sorry, 938 East Jefferson, we can tell you how, we can give you some strategies on how to prevent it, but we're also going to tell you there's going to be some probably significant unintended consequences for doing that. And the last thing I'll remind you of is we just have a lot going on right now, particularly our planning staff. And we prioritize this because we had a moratorium period, so we spent a lot of time on it. Really, over the last 2 or 3 years, we have spent a significant amount of time on these core neighborhood issues. I'm not saying we've got it perfect, and I'm not saying there's more work to be done, but there's a lot of other planning matters that need our attention. And those are all going to suffer if we keep pushing some of these issues to the front of the line. And I've given some of you the example. It's probably 6 or 7 months ago, if not longer, that you all asked us to initiate a planning study of the Northside Marketplace area. We don't even have a contract for that yet because it's down on the list a little bit. So I know I sound like I'm just giving you all these reasons why we can't do this, but the reality is we have to prioritize. And I think what I sense here is that we're letting perfect be the enemy of good here. I think we've got a good set of solutions that we've recommended. Time will tell based on the type of development we see after the moratorium goes away. But I don't know that these minor tweaks that you can do, that we think we could do to perhaps prevent another 938 Jefferson, are going to do much. Are going to give us any more certainty going forward than what we've already offered you.
So, I may be mistaken. Did we have? I mean, we put the moratorium in place. I don't remember having a work session, though, in terms of like an update in terms of the general direction that staff was going in terms of the recommendation. Did we have a work session where they sort of weighed in?
During the establishment of the moratorium, we set our goals and we talked about exactly what we hoped would come of the discussions. Then we had staff had a couple of meetings with the Landlord Association and the Realtor Association. I think I informally updated you after those meetings just to kind of let you know the path that we were going down, but I don't recall the council having a work session.
So I don't know if I could speak, Jim. Is that okay? Or?
Go ahead.
Okay. So I think to that point, I mean, I think I see Stan there and Jeff and our enforcement staff. This is an incredibly technical area. I get it in terms of parking requirements, sizes of bedrooms. It's very technical. However, I also think it's a type of thing in terms of parking requirements and these sorts of things. It's not so technical from a 10,000-foot policy perspective that the council can at least weigh in, including, I think, some of the recommendations we've got, how that smaller developers may be affected as far as that goes. So at least in terms of where I'm at, we originally had set a deadline of March 1st. By statute, I think probably Eleanor could confirm this, even if we wanted to, we would probably get sued the next day, and we would lose because we did not have the statutory authority to extend any moratorium beyond March 1st. So that was our original deadline. I am going to be supportive of, I'm going to actually vote no to allow us that initial time. We do have a tight scheduling window, but I think ultimately we should have had some sort of work session to weigh in on this a little bit, and I think that the council needs that. I think to Thomas's point, he brought up very good points of some of the challenges, some of the problems. There may be some additional tweaks that can be made that I think the council should be able to weigh in on. So that's going to be at least my position.
So I think the mayor, he asked if we would, delay the vote to allow people from the community and whomever to weigh in and with actionable types of solutions for meeting the goals that the council had set forth. Councilman Thomas, thank you so much. I think that you have, kind of cited some things that you think will kind of meet those goals. One of the, and there's other community members that have, kind of chimed in with some possible solutions, but some of them aren't really specific enough to get to the next point. When we look at what staff presented today as far as like all the things that they've been doing over the years to kind of meet the goals that we have with, for the neighborhood, do we turn the dial up? Do we turn the dial down? That is a question that I think can still be asked. Some of the things that is in Councilman Thomas, as long-term, short-term, and that type stuff. I think, we are here 5 meetings away. Is that what I gathered? Well, today included?
Yes.
From the end of the moratorium. I believe that we need to kind of set an urgency for a solution. Susan, Councilor Mims just talked about, we can delay it. If we find someone comes with a solution, on the 24th, and we're at the last final vote, we can delay it if it makes sense to allow a little more time for that to play out however. So I think if we don't have the urgency by voting yes tonight, then when March 1st comes around, or the last vote in February, we'll be kind of where we are today. So for me, I'm going to vote yes, but it really is to create this sense of urgency so that if anyone has anything that they want to put on the table for this, and it's unfortunate that we didn't think to have a kind of a memo in a work session, or, a discussion in a work session just to get an update so that we can kind of discuss this. So I will vote for it, and I think, again, it's really to create that sense of urgency for whomever has something that they want to bring forth. I think, again, when I read, some of the things that John talks about, I think that there are some possible ways to put this in action, potentially. But I think that's working with staff and whomever else to try to figure out how will this work. So, again, I'm going to vote yes, but I really think it's to create this huge sense of urgency. And I am hopeful that potentially whatever the change might be that can help reach some of the council goals will take place between now and then. Obviously, there are people that want to see something different within this neighborhood, but we can't also just hold the neighborhood and, at bay if we don't have actionable things that we can set forth.
You wanna?
So you're going to vote yes on the motion to repeal the temporary moratorium?
Yes.
Pretty much like Susan suggested, right?
Right.
And thinking, well, it could be, a future vote could be deferred if
Absolutely.
someone's come up with some better approach. We need to be clear that we can't expect the staff to come up on its own with a better approach. The staff has already worked on this for months and months and months and months, and they've come up with what they think is the best set of approaches they can possibly come up with, given the constraints imposed by the state legislature.
Right.
So my hope was that some members of the public would propose some ideas that were outside the box that the staff was thinking of, and I don't mean that critically of the staff, but outside that box, and that we could then say, oh, okay, well, that's something we need to look more carefully at, and we have time to do it if we get on it right now. But Jeff's right about, there's no time in the next 2 weeks, really, because of the way human beings work around the holiday season. And also, he's right that the council's going to be really busy and their brains are going to be fried by dealing with the budget and the capital improvements plan, the strategic plan, and electing a mayor and a mayor pro tem and stuff like that. So it's hard to see how there is enough time to process some particular idea. And what we have before us right now is a whole set of possibilities coming from, 7 or 8 different sources. So somebody would have to sort through that and say, hey, here's one, or here are 2 things that I think have potential merit. We got to get on it, but the constraints are intense. So, I'm feeling like we are pretty much trapped by the March 1st moratorium, by the other demands on the staff, the other demands on the council, the fact that the Planning and Zoning Commission would have to be involved and that kind of thing. But if somebody can work more thoroughly on 1 or 2 specific ideas and bring them to the council at the second meeting in January and say, hey, how about this? Then you could, like you said, Susan, you could defer action on the, getting rid of the moratorium.
I just want to say, I believe the staff did whatever they can, as just our mayor said. And when I just think about the people in Des Moines, and they are focusing on us as Iowa City, if we end it, maybe will make them happy. I'm not going to come up with something else for us. But if we keep this, and the session will start in Des Moines soon, and maybe they just would like to come up with something even aggressive, than this. I believe I was ready to really vote to end it today, but I want to give a suggestion to the whole council. Whether you end it today or you end it on the March 1st, 2 of you are not going to be here next meeting. And we never know how the vote will go. That's maybe completely, if we end it today, maybe when the council comes, it would change, or if we make it go, maybe it would change. That's why I really recommend to defer it to next meeting.
We cannot end it tonight. This is first reading on an order.
I understand.
Right,
I understand.
Just being
You
clear.
start voting and ending it tonight. That's what I meant. I know it takes 3 weeks. We talk about it here. It takes like 3 meetings to do it. But I mean, I just prefer to wait for, and also give you idea that if we can defer it to January meeting, and between now and then, let all the people who come out and said, no, don't do it until March, bring us another idea, because we know that our staff is, they use all the ideas that they can have. And because of these holidays and all the busy time that the council will be, I just want to see somebody from the public coming and tell us, you should do this. This is work. And that's why we want to continue. I really just prefer to defer it again to January meeting, wait for the other council to join, and we go from there. At that moment, if we have 4 votes to cancel it, we'll cancel it. If not, we will continue. But at least we're going to give another 15 days for the people who think this should be kept to come over on that day. And that's what I think.
The only thing, as a quick response, Maz, to that, the reason I would disagree is the new council members will still get their opportunity to vote. I mean, if we vote tonight and if we vote yes in the majority to end the moratorium, the new councilors will still get a chance to vote in two votes, okay, because we have to do 3 readings. Secondly, if we defer it again, then from what we've heard tonight, we have individuals with deadlines in early February that will lose out. So there is concrete damage that will occur to specific property owners and potential purchases, and yet we don't know if there is any particular benefit to deferring. And so, again, I would encourage that we vote yes tonight. If we hear some revelations or action that we feel that we could really get done, that it's worth deferring or just letting it expire on March 1st, we still have that option. But if not, we could still get it done before February 1st to keep some options open for individuals who really want to preserve some great old houses right next to their own.
Yeah.
I just think either to be ended on the 21st of January or February 4th, if we defer it. And I still want to give those people a chance, and I just want to see how the vote will go before I can say what I want to do.
Oh, okay, we need to hear the thoughts of two other council persons in terms of how you're going to vote, but I want to, oh, go ahead. You say what you're going to do.
I was just going to say that recently, in the last month or so, we heard a lot about process, the council, and following the process. And part of a process is setting something, setting dates for something, and then sticking to that and following that. And I go back again to the whole public trust thing. They trust us that we're setting this date for March, and we're going to take suggestions up until then. And also, with all due respect, Mayor, I think Councilmember John Thomas offered several suggestions. He gave it a lot of thought and did some research and did offer some suggestions in that time period that we gave him to come up with some suggestions. And I think, okay, if nothing comes up between now and March, and then and with all due respect to the folks that are looking at those properties, I would hope maybe there was something that we could do to help them. But I doubt if the date's there, so, I apologize for that, but I just think, if you have the process in place, you need to stick to it.
I'd say just one thing to clarify the record. It was very clear when we put the moratorium in place. In fact, it resulted from a council split at the time that, if possible, we would end the moratorium early. So I think the record really needs to be clear about that.
Yeah, there's no trickery going on here.
No.
That was clearly stated.
Because
So
Bruce
I don't-
wanted it 6 months, and maybe Maz. So,
Yeah,
That's
I wanted 6 months, but
Yeah, so
No, Eleanor, thank you.
would any other council member want to address this? I think I'm hearing.
I think you're the last one.
So,
not
John, you're
deciding.
clear about what you're going to do.
Yeah, and I just want to say that, as I mentioned, I believe during the work session, based on my research to this point, I think there are a couple of elements that we could explore based on readings of the Cedar Falls and Ames code, which would not allow a 7-bedroom, 7-bath house to be built or to be the result of an addition. So I prepared the memo essentially to try to lay out a whole range of issues that I think we need to pay attention to. The one that's most pressing with respect to time has to do with trying to constrain what's possible short of 7-bedroom, 7 baths. And from what I saw on the Ames and Cedar Falls zoning, they would not allow that. And so I don't see this as being, as I tried to frame my memo, there are short and long-term issues here, some of which pertain precisely to the scenarios we were learning about, which would be to try to incentivize improvements. I don't know if you recall that one, but these houses often do require considerable work, and we need to reward those people who elect to take on those challenges without them doing the work and then the city coming in and saying, well, you've improved the property, now I'm going to reassess you for having made those improvements. And this is something many cities do in historic areas where houses have been neglected and the cost of improvements are significant. So I don't view this as being a long, drawn-out, yes, if we were to look at all the issues, that's a lot. But I think in terms of the the question of the moratorium, it's a very limited scope of investigation.
Okay, so just to be clear, if the motion is defeated, which would keep the March 1st deadline in place, it would be incumbent on advocates to do what they can to strengthen one or more proposals in order to persuade other council members to support them. Or if that can't be done, then of course the March 1st deadline would come and the moratorium would expire. So it's really important to do that if the motion is defeated.
I would say, Jim, it's important to do that even if the motion is not defeated.
Well, I agree. So I'm persuaded by your earlier argument. I'm going to vote yes on the motion because I think it would be better to keep a sense of motion moving ahead, knowing that it could be stopped. The motion to terminate the moratorium,
later, yeah.
It could be stopped on the 5th, 6th, whatever the first meeting is in January. It could be stopped on the 3rd
right.
meeting, or the 3rd vote, and no second meeting in January. In either case, it will be necessary for advocates to strengthen one or more proposals. So I think that's where we're at.
I just want to say something. It's clear to me now, 3 people, without me count, 3 people want to end it, 3 people want to continue. And my understanding from Jeff, if the end it is failed and the continue, there is no another vote, right?
If we vote it down, there's not another vote.
There is no other vote. But if we voted yes, it will continue, right? No, hold on. Let me put my thought together.
Sure.
If now we said we are not going to end it, we don't need to have 3 different meetings, right? It's just done. But if we voted no, we're going to have 3 meetings.
It'll be tonight's vote and one at the next.
That's why I believe, if I voted yes to continue, this will continue, and we're not going to have any another meeting. I really want to end it now, but I want the other council to be in next meeting. That's why I'm proposing again to defer it. Do you guys want to defer it, or you want to continue?
I'm not sure I'm understanding the way you're explaining it. I'm not clear. From the way you're understanding it, you're explaining, I'm not sure that you're looking at...
Okay, let me explain it again.
The way I'm understanding it, Maz, is if we vote yes, that is the first of 3 votes to end the moratorium early.
Right.
And so we would have to have 2 more votes, which the new counselors could vote on, and we could defer either one of those if we so chose. If we vote no on the motion in front of us, then it's done, and the moratorium will stay in place until March 1st, and there's no option to reconsider.
Yes, and I don't want that to happen because...
Right, so you need to vote yes tonight.
Well, one for me, this if there aren't the votes to let it play out till March, I would support Maz's suggestion
Yes.
of deferring. We could always collapse the readings.
Yeah, but we don't usually ever collapse readings on anything that's been controversial. That's been the history of this council for the 10 years that I've been on here. We do not collapse when it's been controversial. To me, it makes more sense to vote yes tonight, knowing that we might want to defer the 2nd or 3rd reading to give more time, which might mean that we end up at March 1st before the moratorium expires.
But
It gives us the most options.
You don't have now enough support for that, Susan. Then it is better to defer it than make it, failed. Yeah, that's what
The thing is,
If I could just offer a clarification.
Yeah.
If you want to keep as many options open as you can, you will vote yes.
Yes.
That's the way it seems to me as well. I don't see what we get from
You gain
deferring
nothing from the
tonight.
other votes,
Yeah,
unless you really want to kill the whole idea
And-
of ending the moratorium early.
And even if one wanted even if one voted tonight and it passed, the council still could choose to defer later on a specific vote if it
Or vote it
felt,
down. Or to
saw a
vote no.
compelling reason, or to vote no, yeah. Okay, I think we're pretty clear on this. I hope that's the case anyhow. So if we vote yes, all that does is move it forward to the meeting, first meeting in January. There's another vote. If that vote is yes, it moves forward to the second meeting in January. If that vote is yes, it passes, the moratorium goes away. If the vote is no during the first meeting in January, then that motion's dead. If the vote is no in the second meeting in January, the motion is dead.
I understand that, Jim, but I don't want to vote tonight, really. If there is an option like that, I will do it, but there is no option because I really want the people to have 1 more 2 weeks to decide. So we can start ending it next week, next meeting, I mean. And now, if you guys, three of you said no, you are 3. And if I said yes with those people, because I want to give people more time, instead of give them only 2 weeks, we're going to give them until March. Do you understand what I'm coming from? That's why I would like to propose to defer it. So next meeting, I want to vote no on it next meeting after I give people chance to come up with ideas.
Can I make a suggestion? The motion to defer takes priority of the motions on the floor.
Yes.
So if you want to see what
Thank you.
happens with the motion to defer, put it on the floor, vote on it, and then you can move on to a yes or no.
Fair
vote.
enough. So what we would need, Maz, is for you to say you move that we defer action on this motion till the first meeting in January.
Yes, I move to defer this action to the first meeting of January.
Okay, is there a second?
I'd second the motion.
Seconded by Cole. Okay, so now we're going to discuss that motion to defer.
Yes.
Okay.
So let's be clear about what we're voting on. If you vote to defer, then we're done. If you vote no to deferral, then you're moving on to a yes or no vote on the
Sure.
order.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Yeah.
If you vote yes to defer, we're done with this item for the night, it's deferred.
Yeah.
If you vote no to defer, then you're moving on to vote a vote of yes or no on the ordinance.
Okay.
I do have a comment. Again, I think, and I hear what you're saying as far as allowing the other counselors, and I.
Not only that, allowing people more
absolutely,
time.
absolutely. Again, for me, I believe that if we vote yes tonight, it would create this sense of urgency for solutions to be, discovered, talked about with staff. John has some great things that I think can be explored, but it does create a sense of urgency. So, and with the option of still being able to defer later. So tonight, I'm going to not support the deferment, but if people come with solutions, then in this viable solutions that will compel me to defer, I will defer at a later date. So tonight I will vote against
Bruce and all of us, the problem is I don't think there are 4 votes in favor of voting yes tonight. There are not 4 votes in favor of voting yes.
Okay, so.
That's why I want you to defer it.
Well,
Well, but let's call a question, right?
Yes, so one thing, so let me just make sure. So if the deferral don't happen, then you're going to vote no, potentially?
I'm going to vote to keep it.
You're going to vote to keep the moratorium until March 1st?
Yes, because I want to give people a chance.
Okay, so I'm going to support the,
Defer.
I'm going to support the deferral.
Sure.
All right, I'd say
She's
any
gonna
other,
vote no,
other comments on the motion to defer to our first meeting in January?
That's why I said I'm talking only to you.
I don't think it's the best solution, but I think it's the only way we're going to get to 4.
I'd support that.
Me too. I think I just counted 4, so.
So let's do all in favor?
Yeah. So we should proceed to a roll call.
no, it's a voice vote.
Voice vote, okay. So all in favor of deferring this item to the first meeting in January, say aye.
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 All opposed, say same sign, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-2, it sounds like to me. I didn't hear you, John, but did
Yeah,
you?
I was-
Yeah, you deferred, right?
Defer.
Yeah, okay, motion carries 5-2. All righty. That was
Can we
easy.
just clarify, with all that, is there anything that you're expecting of staff for the next meeting on this topic?
I think it would be helpful if the staff could go through what we have received up till now from John, from Sarah, from Austin, from a few other residents, and exclude items that are illegal or we're already doing. Get them off the table, and then hopefully other council members will focus attention on maybe one or two possible actions.
And can I just add that if you could reach out to the North Side the Association, so if they have something, they can bring it. And also if you reach out to Affordable Housing Coalition, if they have something, so they can bring it during that time.
I mean, I think those people are already well aware. I don't think it's worth staff's time.
But
I
it's
mean, John's
good
been very much
as
in
a reminder.
communication.
It's just a reminder. They're going to send I guess it's only one association. If you can do that, will be great.
I'm
Let's reach
happy
out to the people.
I'm happy to meet with Eleanor if you'd like to meet and, look at some of these potential opportunities. Jeff, so we can look at them more carefully.
Can I clarify one thing? There are a number of suggestions that have been made that are more incentive, policy, et cetera. Those are long-term things that are not going to happen anyway in this period. I would suggest that maybe we focus on the regulatory
Yeah.
proposals
Yes.
that have been made.
Yeah.
Is that
I would agree.
reasonable?
Yes.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Okay, could I have a motion to accept correspondence from several named individuals, which I won't name?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mims, seconded by Salehi. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, announcement of, item 13, announcement of vacancies, previous. We have one vacancy to fill an unexpired term upon appointment to the Parks and Recreation Commission, one vacancy to fill a 5-year term to the Airport Zoning Board of Adjustment, one vacancy to fill a 5-year term on the Board of Adjustment, one vacancy to fill a 3-year term on the Historic Preservation Commission's East College Street District, one vacancy to fill an unexpired term upon appointment to the Historic Preservation's Woodlawn District, two vacancies to fill 3-year terms on the Senior Center Commission, and one vacancy to fill an unexpired term upon appointment to the Senior Center. Those vacancies will remain open until filled. Community comment. Austin, did you want to say anything?
So this week, hello again, Austin Wu, USC City Liaison. This week is the last week of the fall 2019 semester, which means it's finals. So good luck to everyone and congratulations to all students who are graduating this year. But also I'd like to say a couple words to the retiring city council members. So Mayor Throckmorton and Councilor Cole, thank you for your service, and it's been an honor to work with you the past year and a half. I remember the very first city council meeting I attended here was actually the first city council meeting I had ever been to over Thanksgiving break of 2017. I think it's fitting that both the first and last city council meetings in your presence have involved the rental permits and the impact zone and that issue. I think it was the first consideration for the rental caps, but I think it's fitting that the issue is sandwiched both ends. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Man, it's a tricky topic. Thanks, Austin. All right, city council information. We could start with somebody. Let me think now, who's that person going to be? It's like drawing at random here from. Sorry. So much. Yeah, so let's start with John and move to the right.
So I don't have any other information other than it's been great fun working with you and Rockne, and miss you both. Yeah, you both have done great work, and Jim, I will certainly miss working with you, but I think maybe miss walking home.
For sure.
More, at least as much, I guess I should say. I doubt that there will be many times on city council when two councilors walk home from their our formal meetings. So anyway, I've certainly enjoyed working with you and carrying on the conversation in Rockne. I don't know who's going to carry the torch on community gardens. We'll all take a stab at it.
We'll see.
Love your oratory. I suppose perhaps you'll have a soapbox down at Blackhawk Mini Park. I don't know.
I'll need somewhere to talk now they don't have a platform.
Well, usually at this time, we talk about certain things we've been doing or that are coming up, et cetera, but given that this is the last night for the two of you, just want to say, congratulations on the chance to have served the community, on the city council. A lot of people try it and don't get that opportunity. So congratulations and thank you. I think we've probably all learned a lot from each other. We've agreed, we've disagreed. We've tried to keep it pretty professional and respectful, I think, most of the time, and just wish you the best. Thanks for your time.
Thanks. Pauline?
I echo those sentiments, and of course, I gave my comments earlier with the presentation, so I'll move along here. Jim had mentioned the quarter Visitors Bureau luncheon earlier in the Bravo Awards, and it was a wonderful luncheon, good food and great crowd, and of course, all the awardees were well deserved, but I was especially happy to see Angie Jordan receive her award. She's done so much for the South District Neighborhood Association, so congratulations to her. John failed to mention last Friday, December 13th, yes, Friday the 13th, he and I were sworn in. Thank you very much, Kelly, for being so professional and getting that accomplished for us before the state deadline of being sworn in. And then recently, this Monday, I had the pleasure of attending the staff soup luncheon that was benefit of the Severson Challenge. For those of you who don't know about that, it's a challenge that's done every year between the surrounding municipalities, Coralville and North Liberty and Iowa City, as well as the Board of Supervisors, to benefit nonprofits in the area. And each group is challenged to raise more than they did the year before. But I was pleased. I was sitting at a table with some employees, and they said, oh, yeah, it'd be great to win the award this year, to do better than we did last year, but they just enjoy the opportunity to be able to help people out and to donate. And that just warmed my heart. And I thought, I know we work with a great bunch of people, but to hear them say that and that it wasn't all about winning, it was just in participating, that was really great. So kudos to all of our employees, and hopefully we'll do well, and hopefully we'll win. I'm recalling that back in the day, and I don't know if he still does it, that Terry Dickens, since he was a jeweler, had volunteered to polish the trophy. So if we win, maybe we can get him to do that for us again this year. Hello, Terry, if you're watching there, but we miss you. So then just on a final note, I guess just happy holidays to everybody, whether it's a Hanukkah or Christmas or Kwanzaa, and of course, Happy New Year. And of course, good luck to the Hawkeyes at the Holiday Bowl.
Great. A few things happened. I attended the Johnson County Empowerment Early Childhood 0 to 5 is actually there. It was one of their board meetings where they opened it up to the public, and that was just interesting to hear some things that are happening throughout the state. They had a guest speaker from Des Moines come in, and that was very insightful. I did get to go to the Bravo Awards and with, I think, many of the counselors here today, and that was phenomenal to see all of the awardees, so congrats to all of them. And I would also echo special congrats to our South District Ambassador, Angie Jordan. I attended the Oakdale Community Choir, which was awesome and amazing. It was my first time attending. I had been invited before. You know how you go to some things, and some things you just don't go to either you're busy or you need somebody to actually say, come. And so I went, and it was phenomenal. It was very powerful because you had people from the Iowa City and surrounding community, along with inmates singing in this choir. And it was very, very, it was amazing. That's all I can tell you. And then I did get a chance to speak at the Chamber Leadership Program. It was Government Day, and it happened at the Coralville City Hall, and that was phenomenal, just to be there to talk to all of the, I'll call them graduates from that program. I'd saved the best for last, and that is really to tell Councilor Cole and Mayor Jim Throgmorton, thank you for all that you've done. I think that, being a counselor, people don't realize some of the thought processes that you have to go through to make the decisions. You make it look easy. You really do. I've been up here 14 months, and I can tell you that when I've reached out to either one of you, or you've done it in reverse, the time that you've taken with me as an individual to kind of help me understand it all, and even challenge my thought processes, both for the, with the yays and the nays on the decisions that are being made. I appreciate that, and so thank you. And I know the sacrifices that you've made, not only to be a part of the community and navigate with the community, but also with your personal families. So I appreciate that, and thank you for all that you've done. And I wish you the best in all of your new endeavors.
Thank you so much, Bruce.
Yeah, I just want to report that we had a Allies meeting at the Center for Worker Justice, where we give the mayor award for all his services. Speaking about that, I just want to start by thanking both of you. And I really would like to mention that both of you are really become very involved with the whole community, especially the immigrants community. And when it comes to Jim, I guess for the first time I see immigrants people know who is the mayor of Iowa City. Really. They know by name. Maybe and they remember your name. They know your face because you're being very involved. You have been, just as a mayor, you're being reaching out to all the community. And this was really amazing. And everyone now you are leaving, as well as and you get award from various immigrant organizations, which is they are following you very close. And I didn't see that happening before, which is great. And I hope our next mayor will be follow your footstep on that. And Rockne, you all must be people, I guess, as they are deciding now whether to give you Sudanese citizenship or not, right? Because you're being really well known for those Center for Worker Justice, Latinos, refugees, and Congolese, and also the Sudanese community, which is beside, of course, the amazing job that both of you are doing at the council level. And I don't want to repeat all the things that people said, but I saw those two things are unique, and I would like just to highlight those. Okay, reportings where we've been. I haven't had a chance to go to Des Moines for the mobile home, legislative, and a lot of people, when they ask 60 people from different mobile home communities, they show up there, as according to Zach, and I guess they are working on this, and this is really great. Also, nothing else, but I want to remind everyone about the Thursday at 4 o'clock. We're going to have 2 new council members swearing in, and everybody is invited to come and, yes, attend this is historical, moment for them. Other than that, nothing coming up on my agenda. Thank you.
Well, I guess I'll actually give a small update on the Mobile Home Task Force. We are going to do essentially a conference call this Thursday at 11 o'clock, and we are going to follow up with some of the people from Rock USA. That is something I think I'm going to continue to be involved with. I did want to give you an update on that. So this is my final opportunity to address the community of Iowa City as well as the council table as a politician. So I do have the floor, and I promise I'll be short. My first memory of the city of Iowa City was, for like a lot of people throughout the state state of Iowa was through Hawkeye football games. My grandfather had season tickets to the Iowa Hawkeyes since the 40s. And so every fall we'd have the opportunity to go to the city of Iowa City. And a lot of times what we would do is we would go to City Park, get the roast beef sandwiches from the Amana, and walk our way up to the stadium. On the colder days, we would go to the old Quadrangle cafeteria, and I just thought that was the coolest thing to be able to go to the Quadrangle cafeteria, get some food, and go to the game, and then drive home. You know, of course, we'd always hope to get a Hawkeye sweatshirt and just sort of soak up this really beautiful city that really does represent our state as a whole. And, you know, growing up as a kid in the 80s, never in my wildest dreams did I ever think I'd have the opportunity to not only live in the city of Iowa City. I mean, sometimes we forget, you know, some of the controversies we've had that people have moved here, whether it's the Kinnick House or other ones. For a lot of people, this is like coming to Disney World, right? This is exciting. When you come to Iowa City, it's different than other places, even other college towns. And I think sometimes in the day-to-day, when we live here every single day on our Ped Mall, we sort of forget how truly, to quote Bruce, awesome and amazing the city of Iowa City is. And never in my wildest dreams did I ever think that I would have an opportunity to serve. You know, Susan mentions a lot of people have tried to serve on the council. It really is a true honor to be able to serve here. You know, one of the things that I love about the city of Iowa City is everyone is so smart, and they keep you on your toes, and if they think you are wrong, they will let you know, but they will do it in such an eloquent and persuasive way that you're just amazed at how smart and intelligent they are. And I'm glad that Thomas Agron was actually able to speak tonight, because when I think of beautiful writing, I just think, oh my gosh, Thomas, you are so smart. He almost persuaded me tonight, but not quite. So it has been a real pleasure, and I think really, you know, people always ask me about the challenges. It has been challenging to balance a full-time practice as well as council service, but it also has been, for me, it's always been very enjoyable. You know, after a long day at work, dealing with federal judges, federal prosecutors, to be able to come here and decide the future of the Iowa City with our staff. I mean, and the technical expertise. You know, one of the things before I got on council, you know, when you're in the public, you get one view of how the city works. And so I sort of wanted to match up whether my view sort of comported with what actually happened on the inside. And when I got that view, I think the public should just be amazed at how talented and skillful our staff are in terms of the day-to-day things that they do that you never see. You know, a lot of times I joke about, you know, what happens underneath our streets. You know, we're going to support whatever staff recommends. All the different things that go into making this city truly work, and that takes people at the council table, that takes our community members. I always viewed our community members as a partner in really making good decisions, and our nonprofits. I mean, people like, you know, Sarah Barron and our affordable housing. I think a lot of what we have achieved in affordable housing is not really what we've done, but it's a technical expertise that our staff has had, coupled with this infrastructure that we have in the nonprofit community. So we have Laura and Janice coming on board. I'm really pleased with, I think we're going to be able to keep forward with some of those initiatives. I'm hoping we can get a community garden. Maybe John will be the community garden advocate, right? We actually tried to get one up in Reno Park, you know, 6 years ago. We didn't get there, but now we got one. So maybe that will be John's role. But it really has been a pleasure. I'm going to sort of, for once, be out of the limelight for a little while and let the council sort of take shape. And I won't even weigh in too often. So I think the new council sort of needs a fresh start, develop their policy. And so I just really want to thank the city of Iowa City and all of you for making every single one of my meetings a true honor and joy, and particularly the mayor. I have learned so much from Jim Throgmorton. You know, one of the things I was joking about before we actually got here, I said, you know, I think I have a few redeeming characteristics, but you know, you probably wouldn't want 4 or 5 Rockney Coles up here, right? you need a Susan, you need a Jim, you need a Pauline, you need a Bruce, you need a Maz. You need really a team of people that bring something unique. And I think for the mayor, you've really helped our community navigate some incredibly difficult issues. You've always said it in a calm and respectful way. You've been a big mentor to me, and I've really appreciated that. In case the community hasn't noticed, I do have a bigger personality, and sometimes we do need to like move it back a little bit. I think I've really learned a lot from you in terms of how really to effectively promote the issues that you care about. So looking forward to your continued leadership in a different capacity, and you know, here's to a new council and new opportunities for this community. Thank you very much.
Oh, gosh, I guess it's my turn. I first got on this council in mid-November of 1993, and served for 2 years and 2 months after that, and now in this 8-year term have, along with Susan, participated in 200 or more meetings, and as mayor, 100 or more meetings. It's a challenge being a mayor, I tell you. Trying to manage our meetings are really hard. But nonetheless, 100 or so meetings. And I had a wonderful meeting earlier this afternoon with senior staff, Jeff and Eleanor and Simon and Ashley and Chief Matherly and Kelly. They are so good. You don't have, well, you do. You have a good idea of how lucky you are. They are just so good at their jobs. And they work really hard. So always remember that, even though you might disagree about this or that with any one of them, they're really good. But I don't have any notes in front of me. And I know some of you make fun of me for taking extensive notes, and I don't have any, so I got to wing it here. Maz, it has been a great pleasure getting to know you and dancing with you, good grief, at the Sudanese Association event, or was it the immigrant? Oh, that was so much fun to suddenly be up there dancing around to the Congolese music, I guess it was. And
Yes.
what a treat that was. And you know that you've inspired me to read that book about Khartoum, which I have finished. It's a long book, but it is really an eye-opener for me. And it's only one book, but I feel like I've learned so much more about our Sudanese population than I ever could possibly know. And you gave me a pathway into that. And you have so much passion that you bring to bear on your work. And, sparks fly sometimes as a result of that passion, and so be it. As Rockne said, in effect, in the end, it's about working together as a team. And sometimes you need somebody with a lot of sparks to give you a kick in the butt to actually focus attention and get something done. Okay, and then other people might disagree, and then you have the sparks, okay? But it's been really a treat working with you on that. Bruce, it's been fun getting to know you, and I think in particular of one wonderful event that you and I participated in at the Mayor's Innovation Project in, where was that? Was that Grand Rapids? Washington. Washington, D.C. So at one point, I walked over to one of the organizers, who's now the mayor of Madison, Wisconsin, and said, would it be okay if I asked Bruce Teague, new councilman, to sing? Because he's really good. And she laughed and agreed to be okay. So I then introduced Bruce, and he sang, "You Are My Sunshine." Oh, yes. My only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. And you did it perfectly, like you're very good at it. And then you segued into some other song. I don't remember what it was. And, you have such a joyous spirit. It's really pretty contagious. So it's been great experiencing that. And Nurse Nancy, this is a private joke, sort of. Pauline and John and I took part in some event organized from some professors at Kirkwood. And in that event, we were asked to sort of self-identify ourselves. John identified himself as the Green Man.
The Green Man, yes, the Green Man.
Here I am in my green pants.
Pauline identified herself as Nurse Nancy, and I identified myself as Red Hawk, after the Red Hawks that sail high and see far. Kind of pretentious, but there you are. And, so it was really fun to do that with you and see your lively spirit itself, and watching you change in the way you take notes, too, because, when you first got here on this council, you didn't have any notes, and then gradually you start taking more and more, and you came in with notes. You were, had prepared much more, and now you prepare really thoroughly, and it's like over a period of time, you learn how to do that and really jack up your game, so to speak. And I love your granddaughter. You know, as Jeff knows, she colors in our mayor meetings with the mayor, Mayor Pro Tem. And Jeff has all the right gear, brings out the colored pencils, brings out the paper, and there she goes. She has a great time. So it's been a real joy. Susan, again, sparks flying, you know. We certainly had difficulties in the earlier days of this four-year group of council people. But I think in retrospect, that was really very productive because it kept us engaged with major concerns you have, which have to do with the financial stability of the city, which have to do with connections with the development community, which have to do with other things that you care about a lot, and all that great work you've been doing on the Behavioral Health Access Center, or whatever it eventually will be called. And I think it's really crucial to have that kind of conflict in order to see where differences lie and see ways in which to kind of navigate those differences or maybe reconcile them, you know, in certain kind of ways. And I think we've done that. And so it's been really fun going through that process with you. John, I'm tired of walking home with you. I don't think I'll do it anymore. You know, it's good exercise and everything, but sometimes it's 8 degrees outside. And sometimes there's a lot of ice and snow and not so much fun. And sometimes it's raining really hard, and I'm done with it. But you're absolutely right. I mean, y'all haven't been privy to these conversations, but we always just kind of walk home, same pace, and try to avoid getting hit by cars and stuff. And we had lots of conversations for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years before you got on the council, too, and it's really been a pleasure. And we obviously are simpatico about a lot of things, and not so much on some other things, but perfect. I mean, that's the way it should be. Rockne, you should play football. I'm serious. You should be a 6'5", the Gronk. You should be the Gronk on the Patriots or something. And, you know, you're a big, solid guy with clear values, and like John says, you are at heart an orator. And you bring it to bear when your passion is there. You wear it on your sleeve big time. And I'm happy to hear you think you've learned something from being in this experience, because I see a difference, and I think it's probably been really good for you. But you got a lot of rock-solid moral principles, and you bring them to bear, and that's really crucial. Bravo to you. Yeah, so I don't know, that's enough probably, but if anybody's watching on television, I want to say just how much I have enjoyed and benefited from serving you as the mayor of Iowa City for the past 4 years. It's been a great experience and a deep honor for me personally. I'll never forget it, even though I tell everybody the last 4 years has gone just like that. Okay, I'm done. Jeff?
Real quick, just on behalf of the staff, thank you to both of you, not only for your leadership, but for genuinely caring about the well-being of staff. That means a lot, and you both would frequently ask, how our staff doing, and at these meetings and other forums, express your appreciation for their hard work, and that means a lot, so thank you. For me personally, you're part of the council that hired me, and that's something that I'll certainly never forget, and I want to thank you for that opportunity, something that I will be forever grateful for, and my family will be as well. It's a pleasure. And then last thing I want to mention, just staring up at the strategic plan goals, really been the strategic plan goals for your entire term. And I hope you're as proud as I am of the accomplishments that the city has been able to achieve under your leadership. And what's even better about those individual accomplishments that we could rattle off is that the way you did it set the foundation for us to continue to build on those 7 goals going forward. And that speaks volumes to just how you approach those issues. So thank you, and hopefully you'll continue to see some of that good work continue in the future here.
I agree completely with Jeff's comments, but I wanted to just say thank you very much for your service, your time. You've done a very fine job, both of you. Thank you.
Thanks, Ashley.
I agree with Jeff's comments as well. You've certainly made me feel my age on occasion. Make my brain work really hard to accomplish some of the things that you want to accomplish, but they say that's a good thing when you're advancing in age, to make your brain work. So I thank you both for your service. I wish you well, and what you do in the future.
This is what happens when you're last. Ditto to everything that staff has said. Thank you very much for making the transition smoother for me. I had big shoes to fill and still working on it, so I appreciate everything you both have done.
Yay, Kelly said something.
I've been waiting for that.
Very good. Austin, thanks to you, too. It's been a pleasure serving with you and with Charlotte, and I'm sure she'll do great in the coming year, and all the other student liaisons who came before you. It's been an extraordinary set of undergraduates who have been working with us. Could I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mem, second by Slade. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. We are adjourned.
Oh, right.